Hey, welcome back to the Aaron LeBauer Show. I'm your host, Aaron LeBauer, and today my special guest is Michael Murphy from Divergent Rehab. Michael is a successful cash practice owner, but also entrepreneur owning multiple different businesses. And I wanted to invite him on the show today to talk about where he's at, or where he's been, where he's at, where he's going, and some of the lessons along the way. So, Michael, thank you for joining us on the show today. It's a pleasure to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to catch up again.
Yeah, man. I know it's been like about a year since we last chatted. Before we catch up on what you've done over the last year, I just want to start with a little bit of questions on how you even got into this. So, number one question is, how'd you decide to become a physical therapist? And what was there a story around that, or was it just happenstance?
Yeah, I would say it's kind of an interesting background. So I was a competitive athlete growing up. I coached soccer competitively. I played competitively. So I really love the competitive atmosphere, but I will tell you, I actually never went to physical therapy as an athlete ever, even though I definitely had moments I should have. I actually originally went to school, to do two things: play collegiate soccer, but also focus on academics. And I had a huge passion for forensics. Went to school that offered both opportunities. Loved the forensic world, but found that where my passion was in the forensic world required a little bit more of a 24/7 style adaptive schedule. And I knew I wanted life outside of work and wanted to find a way to balance life, work, and just goals that I have. So I started to navigate different avenues. My dad's side of the family are very business oriented individuals. And I kind of looked in that route. I got bored by the idea of just sitting and looking at numbers all day long. Numbers were something I was kind of naturally good at, but it didn't feel like the impact I wanted to make. And I've always enjoyed being able to be a part of people's journeys. Kind of found my way shadowing into PT a little bit, and kind of just stepped into that journey. I fortunately, in the forensic world, some of the background prereqs for PT school is also in the same science background. So by the time I made my decision junior year of undergrad, I had 2 years to finish all the other prereqs. I don't recommend making that transition that fast. But no, I ended up deciding that's the route I wanted to go. I took a year off between undergrad and grad school to kind of A, save up money. B, I also wanted to coach competitively, so work on those things. And then found my way in PT school in Des Moines, Iowa. And that's kind of my odd pathway to getting to the PT world. How I got there, maybe a little bit messier, but I love what I do.
That's awesome. Was there any time when you got into PT in the first year or so where you like doubted your decision? You're like, oh no, I should have done, or
I would tell you it was a year into PT school, like going through the educational, understanding clinical application stuff is awesome. And then getting into the first internship, I was in a very big brand name style of clinic where I walked in and my CI gave me my schedule, a laptop, and said, I'll see you at the end of the day. I'm like, day one, all right, well, here's my schedule of 15 people. And I rarely saw them, which, I kind of became a financial asset to the clinic instead of an opportunity to learn how to grow. So I kind of, since stepping into the clinic, had to figure out what's a better way to do this.
Got you. So the soccer career didn't work out, or did you know like it wasn't going to be a thing? It was just a path.
No. So the competitively playing, I wanted to give myself the opportunity to compete at a high level. I gave myself that opportunity. Decided kind of last second, I want to go more the academic route. I want to focus on that side of the world. I've been through enough health things that I want to take care of my body so it works long term. And then in the coaching realm, I coached competitively for 12 years until I moved out where I'm at now in Indiana. And the only reason that I've stopped coaching is I've got 3 kids and they're kind of my newer priority.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I miss my athletes. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you play like just, did you play Division 1, 2, 3? Like, did you choose between like a better school for, for soccer versus a better school for academics? Was that kind of part of this decision?
Yeah, it was part of the decision. One was all the D1 schools I was talking to, kind of both East to West Coast, were telling me I had to be a business major or I wasn't able to be a part of the team. And I just said, well, I'm not here for 4 years to just play soccer. Like I've got a life planned after. So I wanted to kind of find how do I have a good balance in that. And I ended up playing in a conference up in Minnesota. That's a Division 3 conference. That's primarily a lot of D1 transfers or athletes that really kind of want to focus more in the academic world.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
shout out to them. That conference won the national tournament last year and has competed very well the last few years. So it's been fun to watch.
Yeah. That's awesome. UNCG here in Greensboro was Division III, and then
Mhm.
the men's soccer team kept winning, and then they're Division I because of the men's soccer team primarily. And
Yeah.
it's, people weren't coming there for soccer. They were coming there for like other things. But, you
Yep.
know, I think one of the patterns I've noticed lately is that a lot of successful people in business, especially physical therapists are coming through, or have been like high level athletes or have focused on it really hard
Mhm.
because, to get to where you got, you had to train a lot, and you had to
Yeah.
run in the rain, train in the rain. You know, have you like sensed that you've learned some lessons in business from your like athletic career?
Oh yeah, when I coached my competitive athletes and when I was a part of the recruiting process for all of them, I always reminded them number one goal of this experience is to prepare you to be successful for the challenges in life ahead, to be able to know how to adapt and respond to conflict or respond to adversity. Because I tell people all the time, I wouldn't be in the opportunities that I have without the background that I was put through,
Hmm.
and being in a competitive sport that kind of taught me how to earn my place and expect that hard work is going to have to be a part of the equation. Nothing's just going to be handed to you. I would say, I have a lot of weird experiences growing up. My dad's business things that pop up every now and then. The soccer experiences where I run into a daily conflict. I'm like, well, this kind of feels familiar,
Yeah.
right? So, when you say you notice that kind of correlation between that individual that's been through kind of that competitive atmosphere, I can totally see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I haven't done like a randomized controlled trial, but I've noticed it, with members in our mastermind group. Like people are like a lot of people are very competitive, or, been, high level in some way. I mean, just getting to collegiate athletics is what the top 1% of like people in most sports, right? I mean, I don't know,
Yeah,
top five. I don't know what it is. I mean, I was struggling to gasp for air, and I wasn't even racing bikes against the guys like that were actually winning, and they couldn't, do it in the tour. I mean, and still it just is like, but to me, it wasn't, when I look back, it wasn't about, at the time, it was about how good can I be? But looking back, it
hmm,
was more about, you're right. How do you prepare yourself and learn like what it takes to, do hard things when you don't want to do them? Right.
yeah, absolutely,
That was like,
absolutely.
that was like the biggest one. It's like, I think someone said to, I saw someone post, and I know I'm way off topic, but I'm not. Someone posted something about like, the 75 hard. Have you heard of 75
Yep,
hard, the Andy Frisella
yep,
thing? It's great. It's like, what'd you think about doing it? And I'm like, well, I rode my bike every day in 45-degree rain, like for 7 years. Like, I don't need to do 75 hard to learn how to do hard things.
right,
I mean,
right.
I played soccer final. We played a state soccer final in the, 30-degree rainy ice. I mean, it was nasty.
Yeah, yeah, oh
I
yeah.
rode the bench that day. So, I mean,
That's when once you transition into the coaching world or the parenting world and that sideline effort, like you realize, God, those cold rainy days were so much worse for them than it was for me, the one that
right,
was living in the moment of it, right?
right. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, um, dude, awesome. What's the like next step? So you're going to PT school. Like, did you know you were gonna own a business or open a clinic?
Was not the plan.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, goals change all the time, right?
yeah,
Um, Getting into PT school, thought, you know what, I'm going to create a good career out of this, be able to help impact people the way I want. I'm going to have the flexibility to do the other things I want to do outside of that. Got into that first internship, kind of hit me like a wall. Like, okay, I know I want to spend most of my time likely in this outpatient style of environment, but this isn't going to work without a burnout, b without trying to find a way to create the true impact that people need, which is, I always tell people when they come in my doors, the goal is not to spend as much time as with me as you can. The goal is to get out of my doors and go live your life, right?
hmm,
And I I definitely felt like in that first internship experience and through other experiences down the road that it became much more of a cyclical process of how do we just give people same results instead of giving them their life back,
right.
right? So yeah, long story short on that, I didn't really have a plan to start up my own practice, but getting into practice, getting into really the clinical routine and the clinical mindset, I got A, burned out, B, bored. by the fact of I really wasn't like, I like to be a challenged thinker. And when you have the same things coming in all the time in repetition, it just gets dry.
Mm,
So, I mean, I found myself needing to either find a new way to make the impact that I wanted to make through the profession that I spent time getting a degree in,
right.
or find something else to do. And I find that being able to give people their life back is so fulfilling and it's fun,
Right.
right? That I wanted to try to find a way to do that. So
So the way to do that was to start your own business.
yeah, way to
Yeah.
do that was to kind of set my own rules,
Right.
right?
Right. So you had mentioned like your dad and family had business owners. Like, did they start their own business from scratch while you were growing up? Did you see that, witness that, or were they
No,
already?
my dad's a CFO who's just been a part of, again, financial organizations,
Mhm.
helping restructure, refinance, rebuild teams to be successful, and then build that organization out again. So none of them have really started up their own business or been a part of that risk taking environment, but definitely have been around that business conversation. So and there's
Yeah.
been some good back and forth and just the way the background of the business goes, you know.
Yeah. Right on. Okay. So decisions made. I got to start a business. Um, did you know? Okay, when I do it, I got to do it like without insurance and go cash, or was that also part of this? Like, was there another like time where you're like, oh, try like
Yeah.
where did that come along?
Yeah, it came along a couple different ways. I kind of had the back in my mind thought that there's got to be a better way than fighting an insurance company that doesn't really have the goal of your results in
Right.
mind. It's the goal of saving themselves money in mind. So having to constantly battle that side of the equation is just generally exhausting to think about. So looking at the different routes of in network, out of network, and then I actually had one of my PT students who took over one of the positions that I had in the hospital I was at before I started my own practice, had also been looking at the cash world a little bit, and so we just had back and forth conversations. And it was time for hospital contract to come up and either invest more in that or get honestly my family out of small town closer to family after COVID and kind of jumpstart everything. So it was let's just dive in and let's just do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So, okay. So let's see. That was you started what in 2022, 21,
2022. So
2022.
2 years will be June 13th.
Wow. Awesome. Congrats, man. That's dope. So,
Thanks.
and then at some point, I think it was was it in 20, what year is it? 20, it was like 2022. You also enrolled in our mastermind. Did you get your business started and like what problems were you experiencing before like you reached out for help? Or I think maybe you came to PT
Yeah.
BizCon, can you just you paint where you were then and what was going on?
Yeah. So I pretty much we had kind of made the decision end of contract we were going to move. We wanted to once we got to the place that we were, my wife and I, we wanted to be able to kind of hit the ground running. So had attended PT BizCon virtually, and talking, just listening, talking. Ended up getting a phone call with Jess.
Hmm.
Um, but where my goal was is I knew we were going to be moving. I knew I was going to get there, but I didn't want to just get there and then start. I wanted to be prepped
Right.
in advance. So I started. I think it was 2021, end of 2020. It was like fall of 2021 that I had joined, and then through 2022 had continued on. But by the time I had gotten to Indy and started up, I think I was 3 months into the program, which helped me kind of build the base of all the framework so I could actually
Hmm.
spend time working on the business instead of starting the business.
Right.
And then once I got
So
out,
you
yeah,
started, so let me just back up. So what you did was you said, hey, my move date is whatever, September 1st. My open date September 1st. I need to get all these things built out before I move.
yep,
Because when I move, I want to be seeing patients making money doing that. Right.
yeah. I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't want to get there and then say, well, now it's time. I'm not good at twiddling my thumbs. So I like to,
Hmm.
I like to keep the ball rolling.
That's awesome. Was there one or two things that you did that were most helpful in just kind of getting the ball rolling, getting that jump started before you landed in your new home?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing was networking,
Mm,
right? Getting a lay of the land of who's going to be around me, who's going to be someone that is a part of my network, or who would be of value to being in my network. So that way, A, I can find my clients, and B, I can help them find theirs,
yeah.
right? So finding a way to create more of a collaborative based community, because I'm not going to get a referral from a physician that's in network unless they've personally seen me or unless they've heard of me or found me from other experiences, which is about 2 years in. I've got a couple that are starting to refer my way, which is kind of a cool experience.
So you started, what did you say, fall 21? I can't remember
Started
my
started
timeline at
summer of
all.
22. Yeah, I started I
Summer 22.
started I started the mastermind in
Yeah.
21 fall, or I think it was around fall of 21.
Yeah.
Um, and then I started business
Yeah.
June of 22.
Okay. Okay, cool. Because it's, and all those the last 4 years are just kind of like meshed in my
Yeah,
brain. I'm like, I can't remember where the timeline is.
I'm there with you too. I can
Yeah,
be off on the start date. So
yeah. But no, but that's awesome. That's really cool. So, well, let me ask you this. If you're a soccer player, why didn't you choose a soccer niche?
uh because it was almost too niche, right? You know, I I know I really love and enjoy being around the athlete, the active, motivated individual. And like when I say athlete, I tell people everybody's an athlete. It's just what
Hmm.
level of life are you competing at, right? And are you the bench player in life, or are you trying to get out on the field more, right? Um, I've got a couple of soccer communities that I knew prior to moving here that I got to know a little bit. But I'll tell you too, like the high school athlete is a little bit tougher in this area to work with, not because they don't need the help, but because all these big hospital systems pay a ridiculous amount of money for sponsorships to be put on jerseys, and they don't do anything for these programs, but they're just kind of there. So parents trying to get a kid into a clinic is a little bit of a slower journey right now. I have
Hmm.
parents that send me their kids that I've seen. um, I trialed being inside of a soccer community, but again, the downside is most of those kids need to be hurt to need me,
Right.
right? And I'd rather be less in that niche, in their space, and more available to their community, so then I can make the impact that I needed to.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Fast forward like a year into business, like
Mhm.
you went from zero, zero
Yep.
patients. Like, tell us about like your first year. What were the things that worked really well with you? What milestones did you hit? Like, how many patients were you
Mhm.
seeing? And,
Mhm.
like, just kind of let's kind of,
Yeah.
catch up to where that was. Like, where were you like a year later or so?
Yeah. So now that memories hit me. So I think it was actually spring that I started Mastermind. So it was,
Hmm.
yeah, 3 months or so beforehand. So started business in June. My goal by 9 months was to be hitting a $20,000 a month, revenue stream, having a schedule that made that work.
Yeah.
I hit that about 6 months in. So I hit that in January.
Yeah.
Um,
Nice.
3 months in was when I hit my 3 months in was when I hit my 10 to 12 K a month revenue stream, which was was great. I getting into a new area, trying to figure out the cash world. I wasn't quite sure where that was going to sit, but I got a little bit ahead of schedule. And I met people every week. I met someone new at least 2 to 3 times a week. Anyone that I've met in the past that I'm always around now, I
Hmm.
make time to catch up with them. Right? That the big thing that I kind of tell people when I'm networking with them is I'm here not to have you send me clients. I'm here to figure out my person that I'm seeing. They have a goal, and I can't be the only one a part of their journey, and I need to know who the right person is for that journey besides me, right? So I really try when I go to network and try to build that. Help people understand that it's not about me, it's about this person in
Right.
front of us, and we need to figure out how to solve
Yeah, that's a
that.
powerful frame. Like the thing I hate about networking is you go there and people are trying to sell you their own shit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
don't sell me your stuff. I'm here to like networking is not being sold to.
Yeah, yeah. There's nothing worse than being talked to the whole time, right?
Right, right,
And again, you find out very quickly who's there to be competitive for a business gain and who's there to be there to make the impact like you are,
right.
right? And so finding the people that are going to be valuable on the journey that you're putting yourself on is helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Can you like just so because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I couldn't possibly like my mind like mindset when I'm like trying to coach people and it's like, hey, I want you to go collect 100 no's, right? Because
Mhm.
some people the no's bother them. I don't know. Sometimes I look at you and other people who are like really good at networking. It's like, do the no's bother you, or is it just because you're there for something other than a yes? You
Yeah.
know what
So
I
are
mean?
you saying like the networking no or the client no?
Both, right? So it's like,
Okay.
hey, I'm afraid to go net because basically it's like I'm gonna go get turned down, or they're not gonna say yes, or they're not gonna be there.
Mhm.
Versus like, because but I think from my perspective, a lot of people are hesitant to go, even like in a social setting, go introduce themselves to someone for the
Mhm.
fear of rejection. But if we're
Yep.
collecting no's, like that's easier. Like to me, like the framework of going, hey,
Yeah.
let me go collect 10 rejections. Like I'm gonna get some acceptances along the way. Like that's
Yeah.
the frame I have. I know there's different ones. Like when you're going into like a social situation, are you even thinking about that? Or is it just more natural to you and you just,
Yeah. I would say at first, I would try to find ways to introduce myself and not like force who I am, what I do onto people and
Mhm.
just kind of have a natural conversation. But I also like search for the no, search for the yes, like let it find you in the way that's natural. Because for me, a no helps me decipher you don't value me right now. You might later, but now I have to worry about having this
Right.
conversation,
Right.
right? For me, being able to figure out, hey, you know what? If I send an email to someone or I give them a call and I want to just see if, hey, then I can go grab coffee with them sometime just to learn more about what they do, and I don't hear back from them, you know what? It's not worth my time because they don't value the message that I sent.
Hmm.
I'll find them later. For example, I had a fitness community out here, one of the Orange Theories that I had reached out to 2 or 3 times over the course of the year and then left it alone for 6 months. And then like three of their members mentioned me to them and like, oh, that guy has sent us before. So they called me and like, hey, we'd love to connect now. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like finding the timing is helpful too, right? There's a point in time when someone gets to know who you are, right? And the time that they will value you. So don't put the energy into someone saying, yeah, I don't want to meet with you. Like that, great. You know what? You'll find me eventually,
Yeah.
unfortunately for you, right? But that's, I mean, end of the day, being okay with no's in the networking world is great. Being
Yeah.
okay with the no's in the patient world, honestly, when it happens, I'm okay with it because they're not my client then,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because the harsh thing about being a PT is we care almost more than our clients do about their results, right? That's
Right.
just kind of the nature of who we are. So I got someone that says, you know what, I don't know if I want to come in and pay out of pocket. I don't know if this is the right fit for me. That tells me right now that they're also not motivated to be in this kind of setting and they're not willing to put in the work. So now I don't have to put my energy and
Hmm.
an over amount of energy into them that until they're at least committed and ready to go.
Right.
So no's make it almost easier. It's the yeses that's like, all right, now let's hop on the train and let's begin this journey
Right.
that we get to really delve into.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I've learned in the last years is no doesn't hurt my feelings. It's just clear.
Yeah.
It's clear
Yeah.
communication. But we also can't be afraid of it because and it's still hard sometimes to even tell my kids like, no, you can't do that. Like my 13-year-old was like, Dad, just tell me no. And I'm like, it's really hard to say no to you because I want to do this, but I can't. But
Yep.
I think it's I think it's being okay with the rejection because we're there for not ourselves, but if we're there for our patients, for the betterment of our patients, like you said, I think it's great. Like I'm here to find out who else can serve this person, not who
Yep.
else I can serve or can serve me. It's about the other
Mhm.
person. I think that's
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
awesome. Um, what uh what are some of the places you go find people like to do the networking? Like where do you go? Is it just gyms and fitness studios? Are there other areas, other groups? Like are you just
Yeah.
asking people, patients when they come through the door? Like how are you building this
So
network?
yeah, I would tell you a lot of my original drive was get to know the fitness communities around. Doesn't matter if it's a personal training community, a CrossFit gym, a high intensity interval space like your burn boot camps, your Orange Series, those. But also finding people that live in the same world that you do that can help your client, your massage therapist, your myofascial release specialist, your functional health providers. For me, I got a lot of DPCs around that are also cash based that live in the same clientele world. I always tell people too, there's no meeting that's not worth having. If someone's wanting to meet with you, right? At least they know one or two other people, right?
Mhm.
And if you meet a financial advisor that wants to talk to you about what they can offer you and they realize, you know what, I know three other people that could use your services, right? Great. Also, if I run into clients that need a financial advisor, it's nice to know I've met somebody that I can recommend them to. So I have some random meetings that I'll have every now and then, but I'm at the stage where honestly I've tried to meet almost everybody that I can find in the area,
Mhm.
through just like visual search. That now when I have clients come in, I mean the first thing I talk to them about is what else are you doing outside of me? Do you have a personal trainer? What's your fitness journey? What's your health journey? If they got a physician that they primarily see, or they've got a fitness professional, wellness professional they're seeing outside of me, I always ask, who are they? What are they doing for you? And are you okay with me throwing them an authorization form for you to sign off so I can reach out to them and talk to them about where we're at? So I'm kind of naturally networking now through patient care without even having to look anymore.
Nice. Dude, that's incredible. What okay, so we got the networking piece, right?
Mhm.
What else? Like what else what are some of the other like things that were most helpful for you in like growing your business, whether it's the first year or between then and now? Like what are some of the things that you've done, strategies, things you learned, like you know, or maybe the other question is if you go back, what would you do more of or less of?
Yeah, I think so. After the first mastermind that we had, I was sitting at the table. I think it was Kyle,
Yeah.
Kyle Womack. And one of the things that, I mean, the thing that's nice about that group is you're around everybody else that's doing the same thing as you. You don't have to explain who you are, what you're doing. You can all talk about your problems and help each other solve it, right? And like my problem that I was having at that like 3, 4 month mark was, okay, like I'm busy, but I'm trying to figure out how do I get through this revenue goal issue. And it was like me having an issue with like direct access in Indiana. It's 42 calendar days. I need a referral to continue care. And so I was limiting my plan of cares for my people that I knew needed longer than 6 weeks, essentially, to 6 weeks. And then I would ask them, I need a referral to continue care. And it was something as simple as just tell them what they need. You already know that, right? And
Hmm.
if they don't get the referral, then it's now wellness conversations, right? And there was just something along the conversation that was like, well, duh. Like I've been telling these people this, but I haven't been following through on my own word on what I think they need. So like just stand by yourself, right? And stand
Hmm.
up for yourself and what your knowledge base is. I think helping get through the walls of yourself, right? I mean, I think the biggest issue that all of us that went into PT school that want to do the cash world or even just private world is like we run into our own smoke and mirrors, right? Of our own, like, again, we talk about imposter syndrome, right? Like you hit your own wall and like someone just has to like put the fan on in front of you and like, oh, fine, got it, makes sense. So I think the other big thing that was helpful was having a network of people that are in the same place that helped me get through the little holes that either I'm getting into or that they've already been at, or they're having an issue and I'm helping problem solve for them when I haven't even been there yet, or I've done it myself, right? So just kind of the navigation of not being alone in that journey, I think,
Yeah.
is the other big step.
Dude, that's awesome. So with you've got a couple businesses, and I'll talk about the other ones, but with your practice right now,
Mhm.
where is it right now? Like it's 2024. Like, are you treating patients? Do you have other PTs? Like, what does it look like day to day? How many patients are you seeing? How's it
Yeah,
like, where's the business now since we last chatted a year or two ago? I mean,
yeah. So the way I run my business is I see people as early as 6 a.m. and I'm done at 3 o'clock, pretty much in the afternoon.
mm-hmm.
I pretty much save my last afternoon slots as my networking time. So I usually will see 4 to 5 people a day. Um, I've got another PT that I brought on staff as an independent contractor who's phenomenal. A lot of my goal for my business was quality of life for my patients, quality of life for me, and quality of life for anybody else that's involved. So she's mom first, client care provider second, and so like she gets a healthy balance and creates kind of her own schedule based on attending events, getting herself out there. It's kind of a win-win for her. I've got another PT that I'd love to bring on that we're kind of having conversations. I had an OT reach out to me that wanted to come in and kind of take on the hand, wrist, elbow people, which honestly I'd be okay with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, but no, right now it's me and one other provider. I see pretty much between 20 and 25 people a week,
Yeah.
which again is nice because that was like 2 days in a standard clinic. Um, and I spend an hour to an hour and a half with all of them. I've got an hour blocked with them and I got an extra half hour blocked off after. So they're never rushed out the door. If they run into traffic because there's construction like crazy all the way over here and
Mm-hmm.
they're 10 minutes late because they ran into traffic, like there's time for that to be made. And like they appreciate the fact that we understand there's life happening
Right.
outside the walls. Um, I would say, goodness, since January of 23, so about a year and a half now. I mean, I've stayed steady in the 20 to $30,000 a month
Yeah.
range. I haven't really pushed to go beyond that because I've invested in other businesses right now, and I'll kind of work on restructuring other things later.
Yeah.
But the goal would be for me, I want to get myself to be a client care provider 4 days a week, alleviate a day, so I can just spend that day with my kids and wife more.
Nice. That's awesome. And so, all right. So along the way, you've got a bike fitting. Was it bike
Hmm.
fitting business, and then
Yep.
subleasing? So
Yes.
which one came first? The bike fit? Was that the
The bike fit.
secondary thing from the
Yeah, the
PT?
bike fit thing came next. Man, I've cyclists around here, right? I've seen so many in the PT world, and I kept telling them as they came in, I'm like, hey, there's not a whole lot of you I need to fix, but you keep getting on this dang thing and you're doing a lot of repetitive issues and you keep coming back to me with the same problem. So this isn't something I can fix here. I need to fix your bike, but
Mhm.
I need you to go find a fitter to do it. And so there used to be three main fitters around the area. One retired, one unfortunately is no longer around after getting in an accident and passed away. And then there's one that's up kind of north side of Indy that does a lot of performance based fits through basically a machine based fit. He kind of takes care of a lot of the high end racers around here. But there's a huge need, and so like all the cyclists, I kept being told, just go become a fitter. You understand anatomy. You can help me figure out why my body struggles on the bike, but can you tell me why my bike is not great for me right now, or why the
Mhm.
setup is off? Because I would just keep telling them, I would assume the problem is here. So I ended up, I reached out to you because you
Yeah.
had a connection for me out on the West Coast. So I went through his course and talked with him a little bit. Um, Honestly, the hardest part about the bike fit is just the fact that you're torquing a really expensive piece of equipment, right? It's almost more intimidating than anything, right?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
when I grew up, they were all steel, so it didn't matter. Now, if they're carbon fiber, you're like, you got to be very specific, you know?
yeah, well, and the first fit that we did was on a Cervelo, the same model that won the Tour de France last year. So
Nice.
like, there's a $10,000+ bike right here, and I've got
Right.
a torque wrench. I'm like, oh man, here we
Yeah.
go.
Right.
But no, the cycling community came to me and was like, hey, we want a little less information, a little bit more specificity to my body and the bike. Can you
Mm.
do that? So from networking, I met a gal who her son is also a PT in the area who had done some bike fits before moving out to the Indiana area and was wanting to start up a business. And so I met with him. I'm like, hey, I don't want it to be a part of my PT practice because I don't want people to look at this as a medical service, but I want people to look at it as a proactive, let's avoid PT style service, because that's where I would love
Mhm.
that my care really was. So we both found a way to kind of set time aside, and this kind of like a side business. The problem is it's too busy, right? We
Yeah.
can't keep up with it because we both have full-time jobs outside of it, and I don't I don't want to take away from my PT practice just quite yet. So we've got another person or two that we would love to add into that business itself. But what we do is we do a functional movement screen, help you identify, is there a biomechanical component to you that this machine is struggling with? And then let's get the bike fit to you so you can actually work well based on what your availability is.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, that's the bike fitting thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other business, man, the sublease business it's a slow growing thing. More so, just I need to make more time for it. But it's really, I mean, the way that my business is run, I don't lease space. I sublease space. I don't need a lot. I need a room and some equipment, and life's good. So
Yeah.
my Zionsville space that I'm in Indiana is inside of a golf and athletic performance space where the owner is phenomenal. He lives in like the TPI world with his golfers. He understands like the collaborative network that I can provide to his members and the conversations that we can have. And so that space is great. I don't I took like a 10 by 12 room from him originally, and I met him. I'm like, hey, I need more. I got another provider. So I took over a different space, kind of cleaned it up. But I've got like a 20 by 25 room and a couple thousand square feet there. Right. So I
Nice.
sublease from him. And then my new space. So I started in North Central and Carmel, and then I'm in Zionsville Fishers. My Fisher space, I'm inside of a chiropractic office where they're an out of network cash based practice as well, who works with the same clients that I do and lives in the same community. So we've just known each other for a while, and I've gotten to know. He's got two other locations, his other staff, and I said, hey, I need to get out a little bit further east. Do you have space for me? So I use a like 10 by 14 room in his space right now. Um, but I spend less money for two spaces right now than I did for my original 10 by 10 room,
Wow.
right?
That's
And
awesome.
so, like, for me, one of the passions is being able to, obviously, like the PT, the health and wellness world, I want to help those providers grow their impact. But as a small business owner as a whole, like getting out of the house after COVID, around here, lease space is 1,000 square feet minimum at $40 to $50 a square foot. I'm trying to build out, like, there's no way, right? If I want
Hmm.
to grow my business, I better be ready to invest a lot right away versus invest in growing my business. And it's just like I don't want a small business owner to die when they're trying to make an impact. So the goal of the sublease business is to connect the person that has space to the person that's looking for space in a collaborative way. So like let's say I've got like the chiropractor, he's like, you know what, I want to bring an acupuncturist in here. He can put into that website what kind of professional he wants in the space. So that way when someone registers as a member, it filters out any of the people that wouldn't apply and they only see space that applies to them.
Yeah.
So that way people can create empty and more of a collaborative culture. Or like my attorney is a great example. He's got a quarter of his office that sits empty. And for him, having a financial advisor, another attorney, a CP, like anybody can fill that space. Obviously, hopefully not a PT, will be a little loud in there, right? And build a collaborative network, because not only does it help cover up his overhead, it helps the small
Yep.
business owner's overhead, and it creates an opportunity for client referral back and forth,
Right.
right?
So it's more
So the
less, it's less of a real estate listing and more of like a place where you can come and say, hey, I've got a room for rent, or I'm looking for a room to
mhm,
rent,
yeah,
and what
basically,
kind of
yep,
office space it is, how big. And
yeah, because you don't want to
Craigslist
go to
doesn't work
Facebook.
for that. Like Craigslist is
Yeah.
bad. I mean,
So
like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many people trust Craigslist anymore these days. And
yeah.
then the only other space to list things is on lease sites. So outside of that, you got to go to Facebook. And if you don't want to spend the money on the ads, now it's just via word of mouth. And then if
Yeah.
again, if you're trying to build out and you need to kind of fill quicker, it's just an easy, convenient space. And what I would
Yeah.
love for it to do is become a resource for small businesses to come to as well. And you know what, I live in this region, I need a business coach here. Or you know what, I live in this region, I need a financial advisor, I need an attorney. Like kind of help people find what they need instead of
Hmm.
start from scratch,
Yeah.
right?
And you're looking to take this like nationwide or just start locally in
Yeah,
Indianapolis, or yeah,
yep.
nationwide kind of thing.
So
Yeah.
coast to coast, kind of help whoever we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's the, do you have is this just a thing that you built yourself? Did someone write the software? Did you are you partnering with
Yeah.
anyone on this? I mean, how's that
So
come about?
we hired out a group to build out the website for us because a little bit more custom. As much as I've messed with two websites, I know this one's a little bit trickier
Yeah.
than I can handle. So yeah, we hired out someone to help build out that website for us, and it's mostly done now. It's just got more cleaning up, content addition, things to add to it. So
Hmm.
it's very simplistic right now, but it gets the job done.
Yeah. So what's the business model? Is it cost to list? Is it cost to,
Mhm.
look? How's that? What's the,
Yeah, it's a monthly membership, right?
mhm.
Here's a membership cost to list the space, here's a membership cost to see spaces available. Ideally, you can find your space quickly, but at minimum, at the end of the day, too, right? The goal is not to nickel and dime the small business owner. The goal is to create a space for you to have an affordable option to find something without spending all the money and investing into something that you just don't know if it's going to work,
Right.
right?
Right.
So it's like the member for like the small business owner that's trying to find space. It's like, hey, here's pay $20 and you can see what's available in the coast to coast area.
Hmm.
Or for the business that has space, it's like 30 or $40 depending on the membership component that
Yeah.
you want to apply in.
Yeah. Well, I know that LA, I've had two or three clients in the LA area, like, just sticking with mobile or not starting because they're like, I can't find a space, because there's
Yep.
so many places to not, so many doors to knock on to find, and there's so many people. I know the spaces are there. And the part of
Yep.
it's like, getting out and being like committed to doing it. But it's like, I live in San Francisco. There's a lot of doors to knock on. It would be easier
Yeah.
to, go and find it. And I found the place to sublease my for doing massage 20 years ago on Craigslist, but
That's where I found my first
yeah,
space, right?
right. But I know Craigslist has like gone downhill a lot, or, people aren't, they've had a lot of other issues. I
Yep.
certainly don't go there for stuff anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I think I know there's a need in LA for sure. And I'm sure that, like small towns, it's helpful, but I think in a big
Mhm.
town where there's so many people to know you, it's
Yeah.
probably speed up the process too, right?
Yeah, yeah, and again, there's so many spaces that are built around, but they're like the cost to build out the space that I want versus be a part of a
Yeah.
space that makes sense to be around.
Yeah.
It's an easier model, and it allows you to grow in a more efficient way, right? You
No.
don't have to
Yeah.
isolate yourself into, even though I'm in one chiropractic office, I've got 12 other chiros I naturally network with and send people to because
Mhm.
it depends on personality and style and other things too.
Yeah, that's awesome. If there's anything you've learned as a business owner in the last 2 to 3 years, like what are your what are your top lessons? Like, what are the things that you've learned along the way that, you'd like to pass on, or you think other people should know if they're coming behind you?
Yeah, I would say number one, imposter syndrome is a real thing. Like you're going to stress yourself out all the time, especially if you're a perfectionist in like the PT world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And being okay with the fact that like expect to be stressed, expect that it's going to be hard, but understand if you do it right, you're going to be fine, right? I think number one is just getting through that whole paradigm is the hardest part, right? Because a lot of us that are in like again the past athletic world that have lived in the success of competition, struggle is the hardest part, right? And being able to work through that, you'll get through it, right? But dealing with it is hard, right?
Yeah.
And accepting that it's going to be part of growth is hard. And also accepting that more problems are going to be what happen as you grow. And that's a good thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
But it is going to add stress, right? And it is going to make you double guess some different things. So I think number one advice would be expect to run into imposter syndrome. Know you can get through it, but have a good network of people that can be your support system, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's family directly or it's other people, whether it is another PT or a massage therapist or like someone else that's living in the same world, because
Right.
we all run into the same problems, right? It's just how are we approaching our clients differently,
Right.
right? So I would say expect adversity, but be ready to get through it.
Yeah. What, okay. My question is this, like, you got three businesses. How do you keep them all growing, or how do you juggle all the balls while not letting like the clinic die while you're focusing on these other ones, or letting one of these other ones die while you're like, what's the secret that you've got to making these things work and, you know, all kind of
I
like
think
move forward together?
I think secret number one again is support system, right? Have a support system that believes in you and reinforces the goals that you are trying to put forth and trying to
Hmm.
achieve. Um, Two is be okay with setting boundaries, right? I think one of the hardest things that people will go through is they feel like they have to always be able to adapt or help create more availability in their schedule. And if you let yourself constantly be available or you let yourself constantly have to adapt, then you're also losing your own ability to step away, recharge, to build up. So as much as it is, there's three different things going on. It's a very delineated at this time of day. Everything's down, phones down, computers closed. I'm here with my kids, my wife, and then I can step back in at this time later. Um, there's exceptions, right? Like tonight, I'm out at a group dinner for a bunch of dentists doing a workshop for a whole dental community that found me. That's like, hey, tell us how to fix ourselves,
Right.
right? Um, and so you make exception to those things, but being okay with accepting that your business can still grow when you step away from it, right?
Hmm.
I think again the hard part is stepping away.
Yeah.
So I think finding a support system, b having a schedule that you can stick to. Google Calendar is great. I live by that thing now, right? It tells me exactly what I'm doing at all parts of the day, or I totally forget
Yeah.
what I'm
Someone
doing.
asked me, like, when is this? What is that? Especially my kids or my dad. I'm like, I don't know, but I can look it up for you, because it's on
Yeah,
Google.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think some of it again, it just comes down to like your willingness to put the work in too, though,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, none of it's easy, right? You've been through this longer than I have, right? There's nothing easy about running your own business, and if you expect it to be, right, then you're really, I think, kind of fooling yourself. You have to be willing to struggle and to push a little bit to find that light at the end of the tunnel. It's just
Hmm.
getting through that part and accepting that that's part of the journey. That's the hard
Right.
part.
Right. 100%. Um, Michael, where do you see yourself in the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you see your businesses, for you? Like, what's the next short-term goal with this?
Man, I'm bad at short-term goals. I look way ahead all the
Okay. Tell
time.
me way ahead. When is it and what is it?
Oh man, my lifelong. So I'm a Minnesotan by trade. So my goal is cabin on the lake, be that's quiet, away from people, and that's my escape. That's my long-term goal. Be able to do that with my kids, my wife. Life's
Yeah.
good. To get there, right? Like business-wise, PT world, I would love to get myself to be at a point where I'm treating clients 3 to 3.5 days in the week. I'm doing bike fit stuff a half a day to a day in the week, and then I've got an admin day and wife kids part of the day of the week. I'm not
Hmm.
someone that I'm not someone that ever wants to just manage from a distance. So I always like to have a hand in the business. That's probably my biggest fault. But at the end of the day, that's kind of what the schedule I would love to have is. I'd love to bring on essentially 2 more providers in the PT business. I'd like to bring on 1 or 2 more people in the bike fitting business, and then the sublease business is honestly it's built out so it can pretty much run itself. It's just a matter of then building out the resources component and figuring out how do we fill the need, right? I mean, you're running into more and more needs, running into more ideas, right? So the goal is to not go too crazy with it, but see where it can go.
Yeah. And you got you got to get a critical mass of options on there to get people to join. Yep. You got to get people looking at it to get options for people to rent, right?
Yep. So it's the game of patience, right? Thing we tell all of our clients, you gotta be patient with the journey, and you gotta accept time as a factor. But then as a business owner, we're like, come on, this is ridiculous. It's taking too long, right?
That's awesome. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you think is important or I should have?
No, I think, I mean, you've covered a lot. At the end of the day, part of the entrepreneur world is just again, being willing to kind of grow with it, right? I think whether it's being a provider or an entrepreneur, right? If we're not open to growth mindset and accepting that there's another way of thinking that maybe I'm neglecting, or there's someone else that's smarter than me, right? Again, be the dumbest person in the room, go ask questions, because someone's got an answer that you haven't thought of before, or got a different path that might give you different ideas. I think, again, just being open to the fact that there's so much more out there that you still don't even know. Heck, I'm not even 2 years into this. I had no plans of running my own business. I'm at 3 right now. So nice. We'll see what happens.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, if someone wants to find out about you or stalk you, or even check out the Sublease Solutions, there a website for that? Is like, where should they come look for you online, or website, social media, something like that?
So PT website, or PT Divergent Rehab and Wellness website's divergentrehab.com. You can find it both on Facebook and Instagram. Thank goodness for my wife. She is the social media person. I'm just not that great at it. You can find us on Instagram there. The bike fitting, so Revolution Bike Fitting is the bike fitting business. You can find that at revolutionbikefitting.com. And then the sublease business, so Sublease Solutions is the name of it. So subleasesolutions.com is there. Again, it's on Facebook, it's on Instagram. Go toy with the website, reach out, ask questions. Message anytime in the email world. I mean, that's what we're there for. Give us feedback, things that you like, things you don't like. I mean, the goal is to help small business grow and fill needs that you have, so that way you can continue to grow and live your life instead of survive it.
Yep. Dude, I love that. This is so great. Hey, Michael, it was great catching up with you. I really appreciate you spending time today to hop on a show.
No, it's awesome catching up.
Yeah, man. Hey, congratulations on all the success and growth. After just a few years, I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next, 5 to 10 bring. I want to, when you do get that cabin in the woods, make sure you send me a picture.
Yeah. Oh, you better believe it. Once I get that cabin in the woods, I'll be out there more often than not.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show today. Again, this is the Aaron LeBauer Show, and our guest is Michael Murphy. Please just take a moment to pat yourself on the back, go out, network with some more people. I think my big takeaway is go network for your patients. And then, then there's all the other good stuff about expect it to be hard, because it is, but the hard is worth it. Right, Michael?
Definitely.
It is. We'll see you guys on the next show. Thanks so much.